Ahoy, shipmates! Welcome back to On the Wind. I'm normally your host, Andy Schell. Today, Ben Doerr is filling in, having just returned from the Himalayas for a family trek over the holidays. I'm jealous of him. However, I'm not that jealous because I'm sitting in the cabin of Falcon in Portugal. I went for a beautiful sunrise run this morning, and it's nice to be out of the minus 20 degree weather in Sweden right now, and I can see palm trees out of the companionway, so that's cool. We are getting ready for the first passage of 2024. Crew come tomorrow. I'm recording this on Friday, January 5th, so it's in the past when you listen to this. Alex is looking at the weather at the nav station. He's skippering this trip. Mia's at the grocery store provisioning. She's the mate on this trip, and Adam is scurrying around installing clever items on the boat that are going to make life easier on board. Adam and I get to go on a field trip tomorrow while the crew get here, and then we fly our separate ways as Falcon goes to sea. A couple exciting things I've been teasing happening in 2024. We just launched a new website this week, so go to 59-north.com and check out the updates there. It'll look mostly familiar to those of you that have seen the site before. It's just a little bit more modern, a little bit more organized, and better reflects the fact that 59 North has grown from Mia and me to a team of over 10 to 12. I don't even know how many of us there are now. So check that out when you get a chance. Most excitingly, we have new maps for 2024. So if you go to maps.59-north.com, there's a whole interactive display there. So you can see past passages, you can see the live tracking and updates coming from the boat. You can see historic trips, and you can see upcoming passages. So if you want to sail with us this year or next year, you can click on the upcoming trips. The numbers on each trip are actually clickable, and they'll take you directly to the website for more information and to sign up. So that's a pretty cool addition that I've been working on in the background with Chad, who has been amazing. So Chad, if you're listening, well done, and thank you, mate. If you are not a member yet on the quarterdeck, I hope you can join us there. August and I are having a strategy meeting next week to talk about all the things that we're going to do on the quarterdeck this year. So go to quarterdeck.59-north.com to check that out. And again, if you've been supporting us through Patreon or direct donations, all that is now closed, and we just want everyone to join us on the quarterdeck as the way to support the podcast. Not to mention learn about seamanship, which is the ultimate purpose of the quarterdeck. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand over to Ben, and I hope you enjoy this episode that Ben did with the folks from Duracell, not the batteries, but the Open 60 boat, who did a big refit on this. I'm excited to listen to this myself. I'll talk to you next week. Until then, hold fast.
This season of On the Wind is brought to you by Blue 3, creators of battery-powered tankless diving systems for convenient diving in shallow water. Blue 3's Nomad product allows you to dive up to 30 feet for about an hour per battery. The main unit floats on the surface, which connects to the diver using a hose and smart reg that turns the pump on when you inhale and off when you exhale. This all fits neatly into a carry-on size backpack as well. It's similar to the old scuba snorkel systems of old, but without the weight and complexity and the noise and smell of an engine needed to run it. There's a Nomad system aboard Falcon for use in port when they need to dive, and saves us from regularly paying divers to get under the boat and clean the hull and inspect critical areas like the rudder, prop anodes, and other holes. Not having to, have somebody dive down and hold their breath means the whole inspection can be much more thorough. And anyway, the whole team's excited to use this system to go look around some reefs and see wildlife as well. Having the benefits of a full scuba setup on board without needing lots of kit and compressors is way more efficient and therefore more fun. It's kind of a no-brainer. Head on over to diveblue3.com. That's diveblu3.com to check out the various setups they offer over there. That's DIVEBLU, the number 3.com. Thanks again to Blue 3 for supporting this season of the podcast. On the Wind is presented by Pelagic Autopilots, a group of dedicated sailors and engineers developing autopilot solutions for the blue water cruiser, solo sailor, and racer. Pelagic systems have been tested in races and voyages around the globe. Both boats at 59 North are using Pelagic Autopilots, and in fact, we worked with Pelagic to build a custom unit for Falcon to suit her 30-ton displacement, and the unit has served the crew well over 16,000 miles during her first offshore season, and was one of the few new systems on board that didn't require significant tweaking after initial sea trial. That speaks highly for the product for sure. more. Pelagic's testing grounds are the Pacific coastal races, and their philosophy is to provide simple, self-contained products, requiring no connection to proprietary data networks. One of the biggest advantages to the robust, redundant systems that we have on board Eastbjorn and Falcon, definitely creating a worry-free, hassle-free system there. The Pelagic Autopilot uses the latest sensors and computer technologies to hold a course through the most difficult conditions. In January 2019, Pelagic Autopilot was acquired by Scanmar International Incorporated, best known for manufacturing the wind vane, the monitor wind vane. Pelagic Autopilots, built by offshore sailors for offshore sailors. Check out pelagicautopilot.com to learn more and spec your own system. Hey gang, it's your guest host Ben Doerr back for another episode here. Little update from the West Coast. I've been out of the country traveling in Nepal, lucky enough to get to do some trekking in the Himalayas with my family, which was absolutely amazing. On the boating front, my vessel True is getting some much needed love with her fuel tanks. We're doing a project getting into the fuel tanks and doing some repairs, cleanup and repairs on those original steel tanks from the mid-60s. A number of projects going on the tug that we live on, the fireboat, and I guess sort of bigger news around here is I bought another boat. Many of you won't be surprised by that. I obviously have a problem. I have to be a three-boat owner, but we did sell Topaz, our wood boat that we lived on for 3.5 years, something like that. She finally sold after a year. To a great new owner, and I went ahead and right away bought a little runabout, sweet little Tolman 23. If anybody's not familiar with the Tolman craft, cold molded little boat, super fun little wheelhouse runabout, and I could not be more pleased. Really rounded out the fleet in a nice way for someone who has to own many boats to play with. So anyway, we've got the fleet well rounded. All the boats are in good nick and getting worked on, and excited to bring you another episode here from the Best Coast. All right, talk with you guys soon and enjoy the episode. You're listening to On the Wind, the podcast about offshore sailing. I'm your host, Ben Doerr. Many of you will know Matt from his well-watched YouTube channel, the Duracell Project, where he and his wife Janni and their cat chronicle the massive undertaking that is the refit of Mike Plant's famous Open 60 Duracell. The mission to transform this bare-bones racing machine into a comfortable, fast ocean cruiser. What I love about these episodes is seeing Matt work through design concepts and building techniques in real time. He's learning along the way and teaching us as we ride along. He's incredibly humble, but he's wicked smart and has a keen eye for detail and innovation. I was excited to sit down with him on the boat in Port Townsend and talk about the project. But yeah, okay, why don't you give me your name and tell me, we oftentimes start this podcast having the guest describe the setting, and this is a pretty cool setting, so all right. I'll let you do that.
My name is Matt, and we're in Port Townsend at my house. They're in the forest just outside of Port Townsend. We're sitting in the cockpit of my Open 60 Duracell, and it's a very misty day.
It is a misty day, and when you say we're sitting in the cockpit of your Open 60 in the woods,
yeah,
what is going on here?
So we got this boat about 2 years ago, and we decided to turn it into a cruising boat. I have a good friend, Graham, who has another Open 60, and that was racing the same races as this one. I spent some time on the boat when we were in the South Pacific doing some cruising, and just really fell in love with this idea of having a really fast cruising boat that can do a lot of miles, be really comfortable doing it. And so as soon as we got back from our long cruise, we started looking, and it only took about a month for us to find this boat in the backyard of a guy in Seattle, and took us a couple years to figure out the situation to where it would be. One of the biggest problems with figuring out where to or how to do a big conversion project is where to do it, because we could never afford to put a boat in a boatyard for 5 years, pay the rent for every month, and be spending all the money to do this conversion. And so we took a couple years, bought this house, and it had the perfect backyard for us to put the boat in. And so we put it back here, started a YouTube channel, and here it's going better than we thought it would.
Yeah. So a lot of people listening to this will be familiar with the Duracell project, and that Duracell being the boat we're sitting on. At least that's the name she has for now, right?
Yeah, the boat's was never actually named Duracell.
Okay,
That's what people just know the boat as, because Duracell was the big sponsor, when
sponsor.
Mike Plant was racing the boat. It was when he was racing, it was called the Spirit of Minnesota. Now Mike Plant sold the boat to John, who's the Seattleite, who changed it to the Spirit of the Northwest.
Spirit of the Northwest. Are you going to keep that? Do you know? No. Okay. All right. Do you have a name?
No.
Okay. Very good. Maybe get the build done and then.
Yeah, exactly. We have tons of time to come up with a good name, and we have some ideas, but we're marinating on it.
Yeah. So the Duracell project being this YouTube sensation, which I imagine you never could have imagined, just judging, by how these things work. I don't think anyone can really imagine that it would go that way. Why don't we start if we can go back to the beginning, let's go even further back for a minute, because we have a bit of time here. Where do you come into sailing? What is this cruise you were on with your wife?
Sure.
Tell us about kind of your trajectory there.
Yes. I learned to sail in college. I went to college at Evergreen in Olympia, and they had a class called the Art of the Sailor. And I should really quickly mention there's gunfire going constantly. Yes, exactly. We live about a mile from a gun range, and so it's hunting season. People are sighting their rifles in.
Yeah,
so.
We are not in a war zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so Olympia.
Yes, and I was really enjoying taking the sailing class. I had some people in the class that were getting into racing, and so I became really hot on yacht racing in the Puget Sound area, and that pretty much took over my life for the next till now. That's all I've done is sail. We've done lots of offshore sailing. Got my captain's license. I was a teacher in Seattle for a long time. Started working at a boatyard about 15 years ago, and really enjoyed working on boats. I worked at CSR in Seattle. There, I built my first boat there, a little 18-foot plywood, stitch and glue, go fast sailboat.
Is that the little one in the shed?
The red one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
The Honey.
Yeah.
And
cool.
It's an I-550. And so that really gave me the bug that I enjoy working on boats, which I never thought I would. And so, and then I met my wife while I was working there at CSR and started taking her cruising. I lived on a powerboat at the time, and her and I bought a boat together, a sailboat. It was a 39-foot home-built sloop with a little doghouse on it, and we bought it in 2016. And then in 2017, we left Puget Sound and cruised around the Pacific for 2 years. We did the West Coast, Sierra Cortez. We did French Polynesia for a year. She has a Norwegian passport, so it was easy for us to stick around in French Polynesia.
Cool.
That's where we ran into Graham on Dog Bark, which is the other Open 60 that's in the area, and sailed back up to Hawaii. Spent some time working on a boat there. I learned a lot from a guy, Chris Moorjohn, who's a really talented boat builder, and he knew Roger Martin, who is the designer of Duracell.
Right.
While I was between stints working on this boat in Hawaii, it was one of those Hawaiian Polynesian catamarans.
Oh, cool.
The Hokulea.
Yeah. Cool.
So it's built to fiberglass, but we were rebuilding it to, it was going to be for a youth program. They were going to learn to sail on this boat. And so we were working on this boat in this shed off Radio Bay in Hilo, and spent 6 weeks working on the boat. And then I took our cruising home back to Puget Sound while we were there, I learned about Duracell, and then I went back to Hawaii to work on this catamaran. And Chris, who was my boss, knew Roger Martin, and so he hooked me up with Roger Martin. I was doing a delivery out in Newport, and so I went out to Newport and met Roger Martin. He gave me all the plans and everything, and it was just I was getting green lights all over the place.
Yeah.
And got to know John, who knew the boat, knew Duracell or owned Duracell, and a couple years later we got up here in the yard. So
amazing.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Seattle?
No, I grew up in Idaho.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my wife's from San Francisco Bay area, and yeah, we met here in Puget Sound.
Okay.
Yep.
So Port Townsend was not your hub. You came here because of the property.
We came here because we did a lot of cruising before we went on our long cruise, and we'd always stop in Port Townsend on our way up to the San Juans or on our way back. And
yeah.
We loved it here.
Yeah.
I really like the boat building culture here.
For sure.
After our cruise, Janni really wanted to find a place to settle down a little bit and
have a cat.
And we were also thinking about this big boat project. We were thinking about the next big cruise, and I had always really wanted to do a big boat project.
Gotcha.
And so we looked at places in Sequim, we looked at places in Port Angeles, but Port Townsend ended up being the perfect spot for us.
Very cool. Yeah. And so, I mean, the listeners of this podcast thankfully are starting to hear more and more about Port Townsend. Mm-hmm. It's been kind of an East Coast and Europe thing, but kind of interesting timing too that all of this is happening because with 59 North, they just announced that the big boat Falcon is going to come to the Pacific, and they've never worked the Pacific, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, it's kind of fun that like through the R2AK stuff, the interview I did with Nikki and the interview I did with Ev, like Port Townsend is kind of sort of coming to light into the center stage of this podcast. But it really is this amazing hub of resources and knowledge and excitement around boat building and sailing as well, and boating in general.
And there's all kinds of people on the periphery that are just brilliant boat builders, designers. They have all of the material knowledge, which is extremely helpful, and lots of people with just tons of random materials that I need. I can go to Brandon and he has like foam parts that I can, or Russell Brown is just down the road and I can go over and buy some carbon stuff from him or whatever. It's super fun.
I was just thinking of Russell because he showed up in his new Power Cat thing that he has up in the islands when I was up there this summer, and just seeing these cool designs, from like there's a lot of minds around here doing cool things, and you're one of them, man. Like seeing this boat and watching the YouTube channel has been really a delight. Like I'm not one for like a "this is how we do it" YouTube channel, really. Watching things being built isn't really like I got enough projects to do. That's not, but I find myself totally sucked into your channel because it's you're innovating in a lot of ways, and you're discovering as you go, like, and talking about that discovery and talking about the things that didn't work. And the disappointment is, palpable. Like it's like it's like I don't know. There's a real thing going on there. It's really fun. And so in talking about the YouTube, like, tell me about that a little bit. Like, did you always intend to do that when you started the project, or were you just looking for ways to fund it, or what was kind of the thought there?
Yeah, we could never afford to do a project like this. And so the plan is we would give YouTube a go. We knew it was going to be a long shot. But we thought we had a great leg up in that the boat has a crazy history. You can go watch, for any listeners that have not seen it, the Coyote, the Mike Plant story is an excellent documentary.
Yeah. I watched it because of your YouTube, because you guys suggested it.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic film.
It's a fantastic film, and Duracell plays a big part in it. And so, there's a lot of people, especially out on the East Coast and in Europe, that know the boat and remember what it did and remember Mike Plant. And so we thought we had a leg up for that reason. We also knew we had kind of a unique opportunity to, and I don't fault people for this or anything, but a lot of boat projects tend to be, pretty common boats.
Right.
And so this is a very uncommon boat. It's a very unique project, and we are, changing the boat totally. We're changing the way it looks, and we're changing the way it will sail, and we're changing everything, from the keel, from the mast to the transom to the bowsprit, everything.
Yeah.
The interior. And so we knew it was a unique project, something that you wouldn't find on YouTube. And so so we gave it a go. Janni does all the editing and the filming, and she's really taken to it. She really enjoys the editing and the storytelling part of it, and I think she has learned so quickly.
It's a huge job.
It's a huge job, and she does a beautiful job, and we make a really good team, and so it's worked out brilliantly so far. And so we feel really, really lucky that the whole YouTube thing has worked out.
And is that is this both of you guys are just doing this full time?
I do it full time, and then Janni has 2 jobs. She does the Duracell Project half-time, and then she also has an education program. She does ecosystem restoration with local kids.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Rad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's like what I wanted to do. That's like what I went to school for, basically, was wanting to do that kind of like place-based learning. And
that's exactly what she does. She wrote a curriculum and gives it to kids. Gives it to teachers to teach the kids.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to get her on and talk about that in another context. But so how quickly did YouTube take? Because I came to it. I've been watching you for a long time, but and I confess I don't see them all, but I jump in there and catch up. And but I wasn't there right at the beginning. Like, how long did it take to get some teeth in it and have
so
it, like, whatever, have numbers and make money and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think so. We published our first video in like September or October, and then I guess it was 2 years ago.
Okay. Oh wow.
And
that's quick.
Yeah, and then we were probably monetized by January. We weren't making enough money to, making $100 a month or something like that at that point.
Yeah.
And then in that spring, it was like April or May, we had some friends so when we were cruising in Mexico, we met this couple on the beach, Maya and Aladino. And this was Aladino was still working on a boat called Magic Carpet. The boat had been dropped off of a travel lift and wrecked the transom.
Yeah,
it was an old. It wasn't a Halberg Rossi, but it was a similar design. And so he was working on that boat in Switzerland, and they had just gotten together, and they were traveling in Mexico, and then after that, they went and started cruising that boat, Magic Carpet, and became really successful. They do beautiful videos, both refit now, doing their second Magic Carpet boat, but they were cruising the canals of Europe and stuff.
Oh, cool. I feel like I've seen that. I know that boat name.
Yeah, it's their channel's called Sailing Magic Carpet, and it's Maya Aladino. So we had met them before they started their YouTube channel. And then they got their next boat, Magic Carpet 2, which is a Cape George cutter, built right down the road here. And they had it on Whidbey Island, and
wait, she plays violin or something?
Exactly.
Wait, okay, yes, I know who they are. Yeah, okay, got it.
they're awesome.
Yeah,
and
very cool.
So we ran into them at Edenstow, and we were like, "Come out to the house, check out the boat." And then they did a whole episode on our project.
Yeah,
and that kind of launched our.
Oh, cool. That cross marketing thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they were a big help. Another channel, Sailing Melody, has been very helpful. They were successful and did a little bit on us. And since then, it's been just growing ever since.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I imagine once you get that traction, I mean, you can speak to the order of things, but it seems to me once you get that traction on the YouTube thing, then like the sponsors you have now that are like material sponsors have got to be massive, right? Because your materials costs would be enormous, I imagine.
Yes.
Without, I mean, I know it wasn't Total Boat's been in here. And
yep, Total Boat has been fantastic. They give us all of our epoxy.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, all I think about with your episodes is like, there's like he's pumping like another 3 gallons of epoxy.
Yeah, I go through.
It's so much.
I go through the stuff, and Yeah, and then Interlux has
Oh, yeah.
signed on, and they're going to paint the whole boat for us.
Jeez.
Dave, who's the local rep, has been fantastic, and we've got a few more. And the project kind of lends itself well to like a growing YouTube channel in that it's actually the cheapest at the beginning.
Right.
And so, hopefully as you've gotten big at the end of the project, then all the electronics and electrical and appliances sponsors will come on board.
But even that paint job, man, like I was quoted $40,000 to paint my boat, and I wrapped it with Prism, which was fun.
You did?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Are you able to talk about the sponsor that just came on here, or is that
not yet?
Okay. All right. For another episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exciting that you're able to, I think the YouTube thing, there's some challenges in it, right? In that, like, it feels like everybody's doing it. Everybody goes like, oh, I'll start a YouTube channel. And the cruising, I'll just share my own opinions. This isn't the world's opinion, but like the cruising YouTubes for me has gotten a little worn out because it's like, okay, I get it. You can cruise.
Saturated.
You can cruise too.
Yeah.
And I also worry sometimes about people's ability to kind of like just live their life, and not have to put it on, the screen all the time. I think this is a unique situation where obviously that's a funding source for building a boat that is a very cool and unique project. Interesting to watch, all of those things. So you get into that. There's the sponsorship there. How much of, I guess my question around that is like how much of how you're able to do things is dictated by what you need to do for the filming. I kind of want to get in the nuts and bolts here. Like, do you have to do you have to time certain projects with how you're going to film it or roll it out, or are you more organic about it and just go about it and cover it?
It's a really good question. Our style is that we try to wrap up projects within a certain amount of time so that it keeps the story in one line, I guess. And so
some sort of narrative happening.
Yeah. And I'm only we have some great helpers coming over, like my mom, and I have friends coming over, but I don't have a full-time crew or anything like that. And so I'm only one person trying to get each individual project done. And so in order to keep it interesting, we have to go as quickly as we can while doing a good job and, finishing projects within a certain amount of time. I'm always worried about, we're taking forever to get this cockpit done. And so people are going to get so bored, or we've been spending 5 weeks on the chain plates. And sometimes it seems that viewers do get bored of projects, and sometimes it seems like they really, we could go longer on a project. And so... but we are tied to how, I can't build a crappy boat. And so I have to put the boat first and make sure I do a good job building stuff. And hopefully people will be interested enough to stick around and see the project finished out. But right now we're working on the doghouse, trying to get the outside of that squared away so that I can get it primed before it gets cold out. That's the other thing, is that I'm outside pretty much, and so I'm kind of dictated by the weather to do outdoor projects when it's warm and indoor projects when it's cold.
It's been kind of fun to watch that seasonal shift, actually. It's like, let's get out on the foredeck and do some things, and out to the bow, like during the summer. This is a terribly rude question, but do you have a timeline? Do you have a vision of a timeline, or are you just going to work until it's done and not give yourself that kind of...
Well, I obviously get the question all the time, and I would like to say that I'm going to be done in 2 years, but I'll probably be saying that for 5 years. So
yeah, you want to do it right.
Yeah, exactly. And we would love to hire somebody in the future, but that depends on how well the channel does.
Yeah.
And we've all seen Leo's gotten to hire people and really get the project moving.
Yeah, the Tally Ho project for people who are people who are familiar with this are probably familiar with that as well. Like Port Townsend's just like the set, and having Western Flyer just launch and go down the coast, and it's like such a cool. I don't know. There's a lot of really cool refits and rebuilds happening in Port Townsend right now. I think it's a pretty neat neat flow here. So what are you currently working on right now? Like presently, like when I leave you today, like what are you getting into on this boat?
Yeah, so I'm trying to. So we just glued on the doghouse roof.
Right.
My mom was here the other day, and we glassed the perimeter of the roof itself. I got to shape these to be a really cool shape and add some.
These being the fairings on the side
Yes,
of the
exactly. The
house.
doghouse sides where they extend into the cockpit. I want to put some handholds on them. And I actually messed up on one of the vacuum bags up on the brow, on the leading edge of the doghouse roof. So I'm going to redo that today. I have to glass the Traveler at the top of the Traveler bulkhead. And there was something else.
So I want to describe too for a second, since this is not a visual medium. Like, first of all, you can see all of this happening at the Duracell Project on YouTube, which is I really, really highly recommend. We'll just plug it here.
Thanks.
We'll plug it at the end. We'll plug it at the top. We'll plug it everywhere. But it is really, really cool. But like the whole boat, everything that you're building on here is like a foam core, glassed in, vacuum packed, sealed, vacuum bagged construction. And so you really can shape anything the way you want it, which is very cool. Like I noticed down in the main salon, like the sort of half bulkheads have handles built into them that you're going to shape out. And I mean, it really shapes like wood, almost like a soft wood in a way. And then you glass that over, I suppose. But like these fairings, you'll be able to, I would call them fairings, I don't know, like combings, I guess. Is that what these pieces are on the side of the doghouse in a way?
I guess, yeah.
At any rate,
coming up with all kinds of weird names.
They're like kind of like what a hard Dodger would be extending back here. And you like the sky is the limit, or like your hacksaw is the limit, for you to shape this however you want. It's just such a cool, I own a wood boat that I'm desperately trying to sell, but I do own a wood boat, and then I own, a fiberglass boat and a steel boat that I live on, fiberglass boat that I work. Like I've never dealt with this, like what I would consider like futuristic, building of boats. And it's really, really been cool to watch that shape out. Like you have all this boat building history and working on boats and working at CSR, which is a yard in Seattle. Like, what is this like for you? Had you done this stuff before, or are you totally learning how to build this stuff?
No, I'd done this stuff before. Not a ton of it, but I quickly understood the capabilities of these things. And I am not a mold kind of person. Like, I don't build molds. I've never been into that. I probably should, but I feel like it's... building, like I could have built a mold for this entire doghouse. And
seems like you have to do the work twice.
Exactly. And it's a lot more materials, because then you build a mold and then you just throw the mold out.
Right.
And so this way I can just build the panels. So I'm building everything with flat panels pretty much. And then I bend them where I can. But it's, I don't know, I am learning as I'm going along for sure. But I understood early on what I could do with all this stuff. Basically, just making a shape, glassing it together, and using vacuum bagging as much as I could just to keep things light and strong. And
weight is obviously an issue. You're on a 60-foot boat that you're adding a lot of stuff to. So, and you want a light, long-range cruising vessel converted from a light, long-range racing vessel. So it's really cool. Like I was just looking at the doors that you have built out of this process and thinking like, oh, I would have just assumed you put a wood door on, right? But no, like you're going to put this door on that's like built from this foam core, vacuum bag thing, and then you're going to build hinges. You're going to build your own hinges out of carbon.
Yeah,
which is
like these hinges.
Yeah, they're so cool. I loved watching this process. And then they just lay in. There's no fasteners, right?
Yep.
It's such a cool kind of approach. I don't know. I'm just there's not really a question there. I'm just in awe of it. It's very neat.
I'm just trying to take advantage of the materials that are available now, and the price is falling on these things, and they're easily accessible to anybody, any consumer, and so it's what these these epoxies and foam cores and everything can do is really, really cool. And so and I have help from engineers and naval architects who can tell me exactly how strong these things are and can help me with that engineering, because I have no like proper engineering background or anything like
the
that.
calculus for that is like,
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to have a lot more understanding of that. How thick to make your hinges, how
Yep.
all these things. But yeah, that's really cool, man. So looking beyond the project, because we could get into a million nitty gritties about the project, but really people should watch your channel, because that's where you can just see it and we don't have to talk about it, and you can have the visual and all that, and they can meet your wife and your cat. And I like your cat's little cameos popping up out of random holes in the boat. What's the cat's name?
La Paz.
La Paz, nice.
Yep.
So is that where you found her?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So looking beyond into the future, like what do you want to do? I mean, I know you're not making plans about cruising yet, probably, because you got to finish the boat in 2 to 5 years. But like, what do you want to do? Like, where do you want to go with this boat? What is the dream?
You're right that we're not making any plans, but we really want to spend a lot of time north.
Very cool.
And we also, I had a great time cruising around the Pacific, and so I'd love to get back to French Polynesia, the South Pacific. We have no plans to do like a circumnavigation or anything like that, but Janni does keep bringing up Europe. And so we'll see. There's
like her homeland, her people, Europe.
Yes,
like
exactly.
into Norway
Going up into Scandinavia.
Yeah. Very cool.
So
Svalbard, maybe.
What's that?
Svalbard, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm not gonna, take any. Yeah. It's the sky's the limit. We feel like with this boat, and so, but initially, we're gonna do a lot of testing, not go far from home, and then start working our way north and Vancouver Island and Alaska. And,
when you go to cruise, you obviously move on to the boat and just be on full time.
Yeah, we're designing the boat to be very self-sufficient, in that it won't need to go to the dock. Only pretty much to get fuel.
On that note, can you talk about the water ballast? Because that is something that's very interesting to me and very unique. Maybe it's on other boats, but the way you've set it up seems...
Yeah, so the boat originally had saltwater ballast, and I have changed it to be freshwater ballast. I've reduced the size of the tanks, and so there will be 300 gallons of freshwater ballast per side. What we'll do is fill them halfway. And then if we're heading upwind and we need to move the ballast up, then we just drop the water down, open a valve, let the water fall down to one side, close the valve, and then tack. And then the water will be on the high side. And then every time we tack, we just let the water fall down right before every tack. If we're going to be on a long tack, like if we're headed to Hawaii and the breeze is building and we just need to hike the water up, we'll have a slow pump to slowly pump the water up to one side. Or fill both water tanks. And having freshwater ballast tanks ties us to having a high-capacity water maker. So we'll have to build a 50-gallon an hour, at least, water maker to make it work. But
it also gives you a lot of water. I mean, far more than the average cruising boat has, I think.
Yeah.
Total capacity, I think you said, was 600 gallons. And that's a lot of fresh water.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it comes to it.
Yeah. On our last boat, we had 210 gallons on board. And it was so nice being that we didn't have a water maker, but we didn't really have to worry about water too much.
Yeah. I just think that's such a cool little thing. Kind of jumping around, but you mentioned your last boat. John Guillat told me I had to ask you about your last boat because it has a really cool story and how you got into that and the people who built it and all of that.
Yeah, so let's see. When I first moved back to Seattle, I started racing with this guy, Graham, who had a boat at Shoal, and it was called Kotuku. It was a FAR 1220, and we did a ton of racing on it, including the Pacific Cup. Our tactician on board was Al Hughes, and Al Hughes became both Graham and Al are great friends. I kind of see them both as mentors, and so I'd always heard about this boat that Al lived on that he built with his wife. They built it in their backyard in Queen Anne, I believe.
A neighborhood of Seattle.
A neighborhood in Seattle. Yeah, exactly. And so they built in their backyard in the late 70s and lived on it at Shell Show for 35 years. And I'd always heard about it. I'd never seen it. And then Graham... okay, let me go back. Al also had an Open 60.
Oh, okay.
Dog Bark.
Yeah. Oh, he owned Dog Bark.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, Al bought Dog Bark and did 2 or 3 single-handed Pacific Cups, Transpacks on it, and won them all.
Yeah, and the Transpac goes from where to where?
The single-handed Transpac goes from San Francisco to Hawaii.
Okay.
Yep. And so Graham bought Dog Bark, and I bought Louise, which was the boat that Al built in his backyard. And it's a 39-foot home-built sloop. Had a shallow draft. It only drafted like 50 inches or something like this.
Whoa.
Had a shield keel, is what it's called.
Okay.
And it had this little doghouse where the benches inside were basically extensions of the cockpit benches, and so they opposed each other inside the doghouse, and that's where Janni and I spent all of our time, was inside the doghouse and in the galley, which had really high ceiling, which was underneath the doghouse. And we loved it. That's the boat we cruised around the Pacific on. Wasn't a fast boat, but it wasn't. It was super comfortable, and it was cheap for us, and it was very sturdily built. It was also a foam core fiberglass hull.
Oh, wow.
And so this boat is literally a blown up version of that boat.
Okay.
The layout that we're designing on it.
Yeah, that's the inspiration for the doghouse that you built.
Yeah.
And the extension there.
Those guys are the guys I did like the Race to Alaska with, and they're awesome.
Yeah, cool. So Dog Bark being the sister ship, let's call it, to Duracell here. So I didn't realize that connection. Like, so Graham, who's a mutual friend of yours and mine, that's on Bainbridge, and his boat Dog Bark is now in Sitka, getting ready to go through the Northwest Passage. It's a shame that these boats can't go do it together. Maybe they will one day do it again or something. But it'd be fun for these boats to meet up somewhere. And do something epic for sure.
It would be cool. But yeah, we're just taking too long to get this.
Yeah, that's it. Well, who knows? Maybe it'll take that long for Dog Bark to get through.
They've tried it before. His boat is solid glass below the waterline, which is a huge advantage for going through that ice.
Yeah.
This boat is not.
Right.
And so it has a Kevlar, like the forward half of the boat has some Kevlar in it, but
like a skin, basically.
Yeah, but it's foam below the waterline, and so that alone makes me kind of wonder if it would be a good boat for going through the Northwest Passage.
Yeah.
As the world gets warmer, I might get lucky. And
and I guess it depends. You'd want to kind of someone else could do the math on like how ice tears a Kevlar. Like maybe Kevlar doesn't really tear that way. Maybe Kevlar skin is, or you add a bit, or like
maybe
a shield of Kevlar, an ice shield of Kevlar.
Yeah, totally.
Along the whole waterline or something. I don't know. Crazier things have been done. Yeah, that's cool. Well, that's really cool. I think the boat. It's interesting that every boat has a limitation. Every boat has a
compromise.
Yeah. But like you have gotten into this massive boat. I mean, I know you wanted to go fast, to cruise quickly, because that makes undoubted, like our friend John Giat, who I just brought up, he is buying this catamaran because he wants to cruise fast with his family. Like, this is the thing, like, I'd never even considered this till meeting Graham and Jana, and Graham talking about, like, I don't remember the specifics, but it's like they were in Hawaii and they had friends in, like, Palau or something that were like, we're only going to be here 3 weeks, and they, like, sailed down to see him or something and sailed back to Hawaii. It's just like, when you can move quickly, it does make the world much smaller.
Yes.
I mean, thus the airplane. But, like when you can sail quickly. So I get the fast thing. Did you envision, I mean, this is a massive boat. Like 60 feet is probably more boat than you really, I mean, you didn't need it before to go around, but did you need that to have the waterline to have the speed? Was there like no way around having a smaller boat, or this was just the boat that was there and the size didn't really matter?
I wanted the waterline. So I spent a lot of time reading Dash Shoes books. I don't know if you've know his boats, he does the Deerfoots and the Sun Deers.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
FPBs.
Yeah.
And so that's his philosophy is long and narrow.
Yeah.
And you lose the volume inside the boat, but you gain the speed. And by having that long, narrow hull form. And after reading his books and spending time on Dog Bark, and I've delivered FPBs and dash shoe boats and other kind of long and lean style sailboats, and I wasn't expecting to like find a perfect project like this one, but since it came up, I was just like, well, I'm not going to find anything better than this.
Right.
And so, I would have been totally happy with a 50-footer.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have wanted to go any smaller than a 50-footer. Like I probably would have been looking for like a Santa Cruz 50, something like that. But yeah, this came up and I couldn't say no.
How much of first of all, like, yeah, you lose some volume with the narrow, but you're going from being on a 38-footer you were on before, so you're gaining it in length personally.
Well, and also this is the living space on this boat is actually only 35 feet, so the aft 12 feet and the forward 13 feet is all storage.
Yeah.
And so all the systems will be back here underneath the cockpit, and we'll have sail storage forward of the V-berth. The big difference, though, is that you have the width at the middle of the boat. So it does become a lot bigger than your normal 35-foot boat, obviously. But we're not trying to build like a super yacht, with 5 heads and whatever and 4 staterooms and stuff like that. It's going to be a relatively simple interior, but we get the speed. But we have to pay for the length of the slip.
Yeah, well, maybe you're not in a slip very often.
Well, that's what we're trying to do is keep it. It's an anchoring boat.
Yeah.
We can leave it at anchor.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, how much of Mike Plant's story hooked you on this boat? Like, how much of the history of it was like, oh my God, this just has so much pedigree and sort of charm and that's, or how much did you even know about it before?
Well, I knew of him. I'd read a story or two, but I didn't, if you would have asked me who was Mike Plant before I learned about this boat, I would have been like, oh, that sounds familiar, but I don't remember exactly who. I came into racing and sailing way after he did his thing. And so what appealed to me about the boat was that after I talked to like Roger Martin, who I knew Roger Martin, I really respect his work, the designer of the boat. I've worked on Aerodynes and I've worked on Grey Wolf.
Oh, yeah. Is he the designer of Grey Wolf?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. My worlds are just colliding right now. Okay.
And so, I went into his house and he pulled out all the files that he had on the boat. And I spent a couple hours with him one morning in Newport. And he kept telling me, he was like, Mike Plant was... he was very diligent about making sure the boat was built really well. And so that was really important to me, like given everything that the boat's been through.
Right.
The boat was washed up on a beach in Newport in a hurricane.
Whoa.
Hurricane Bob.
Like broke off a mooring or something.
Yeah. I don't know if it broke off a mooring. I can't remember exactly what happened. I do know that Mike Plant and his nephew were on the boat, and they were trying to sail out the storm, I believe.
Okay.
And the nephew accidentally pulled the Genoa out. This is during a hurricane, and so the boat washed up on the beach.
Oh boy, yeah, you're not getting that rolled up.
Yeah. And so, and the whole story about him losing a rig part in the South Pacific and having to, what did they do? He anchored out on that crazy island out south of New Zealand. The whole story is just crazy.
Yeah.
But hearing from Roger Martin that the boat was built really, really well, and the fact that the boat was designed by someone like Roger Martin, that was a huge selling point for me. Less the Mike Plant story, because, I don't know, we saw that as an advantage for the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And, you know, we don't need to go on about who Mike Plant is because people should go watch Coyote, the Mike Plant story. I think it's free on Amazon if you're a Prime member or something. Like go check that out.
There's also a great book his sister wrote called Coyote.
Oh, okay. Cool. Did that come before the film?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. Well, man, I think that's great. I think this is kind of a cool place to wrap if you feel good. And tell me, you know, oftentimes Andy asks his guests, and I like this sort of thing, like, is there anything you would recommend, anything in the boating world, or it's kind of a loose, open-ended, like, you know, something people should check out, or other than your YouTube channel, because we'll plug that.
Okay.
Definitely check that out. But yeah, anything that you like, you know, books or, you know, whatever.
Geez, that's a great question. I've been watching a place I've been learning a lot of stuff from is this Young Barnacles YouTube channel.
Okay.
The guy, I can't remember his name, but he's cruising with his family on a old catamaran. You would know the name. I can't remember the design, but it's he's like an ex-America's Cup racer, and he's a like top-notch carbon fabricator, like builds bowsprits and chain plates, and I've been learning a lot from him.
Cool.
The naval architect who's been helping me, Evan, who's up in BC, he's the one that turned me onto the channel, and the guy just does beautiful, beautiful work, and so I've been learning a lot from him. So if anybody's looking for like cool carbon part lamination stuff, check out his channel.
Awesome. That's actually a really great answer because it gets us like to see where you're pulling inspiration from as well. So I think that's cool.
I wish I did have a little bit more time to watch YouTube. I don't watch a lot of it, but there's so much great stuff out there to learn from, like, and just people doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that's really cool. Like the way you're doing this boat. Maybe not everybody can create a YouTube channel and get the sponsorships, but they can learn the craft of the things you're doing and learn how to. I mean, really, you can go through some of your episodes that I've watched. You could watch them, go back and watch them, and like follow it as a how-to. I mean, there really is a lot of education involved, which is very cool.
Oh, thank you.
I like the way you talk through everything and the way you get prodded by your film crew to talk through everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool, man. Well, do you, I guess the other last question maybe would be who you think we should interview next out here? Because I'm basically talked to Andy and the crew with On the Wind here into letting me do some West Coast exploration of this podcast and guest hosting the West Coast version. So, I mean, anyone in town or anyone, I plan to talk to Sean. I'd really like to get him on ranking on the podcast, talking about sail making and stuff. But anyone you would recommend?
Man, there's so many cool people here in town.
Even just in the region.
Have you talked to Graham yet?
I have not had Graham. I should.
Graham and Janna.
Yeah,
I think them together would be a really fun.
That would be fun. Yeah, he and I are going to Sitka next in a couple weeks.
Oh, right on.
To go close up Dog Bark, and
cool.
We're gonna hopefully lease the boat from him in the spring to do some sail to ski trips around.
Oh, wow!
So
that will be awesome.
Yeah, trying to move that up to Alaska. So we'll see how that goes. But maybe he and I can do one while we're on the trip. Yeah. That'd be really cool. So awesome, man. Yeah. Also, so Roger Martin's still around, right?
No, he passed away very soon after we got the boat, unfortunately.
No. Oh, man. Yeah. Because he would have been epic, I guess. To
It would have been really fun to have him. And unfortunately, John, who owned the boat before us, he also passed away this past spring.
Yeah, I'd heard that. Yeah. Sorry to hear that, too.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah. Righto. Well, I'll look into talking to Graham and some other people around town. But really nice to talk with you, Matt. Really cool. We have so many mutual friends, as we've discovered, and I can't believe it's taken this long to meet. But I appreciate you taking the time and talking with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good luck on the project, and everybody should check out the Duracell Project YouTube. And if I'll just say it on here, if you like what you're seeing, you should be one of the Patreon supporters, because I know that's a way you get some money in the bank to do this as well.
We couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, it's really cool. So awesome. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks to Pelagic Autopilots for sponsoring this episode of the show. To learn more and to spec your own system, go to pelagicautopilots.com. Thanks again to Blue 3 for supporting this season of the podcast. That's DIVEBLU, the number 3.com. On the Wind is the podcast about sailing. Created by 59 North and hosted by me, Ben Doerr, and also by Andy Schell, August Sandberg, Nikki Henderson, and Emma Garshagen. The show is mixed and produced in Frederick, Maryland by Lee Cumberland. Ads are read by us, the hosts, and occasionally by 59 North bosun Adam Brown and podcast producer Lee Cumberland. Episode artwork and website show notes are done by Laura Parent in San Francisco. The intro theme music is composed and performed by former podcast guest and musician Cameron Dial. While the outro music you're hearing now is, of course, by our friends Storm Weather Shanty Choir. We love hearing from our fans. In fact, I was a fan once, emailed Andy, and I'm sitting here hosting this podcast, having sailed offshore a bunch of times with the boats as well. So there you go. Send your questions and comments to holdfast@59north.com. And please do us a favor and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, hold fast.
To go to sea no more. No more, no more. To go to sea no more. I made up me mind that I was inclined to go to sea no more. As I was walking down the street, I met sweet Angeline. She said, come home with me, me lad, and we'll have a cracking time. But when I awoke, it was no joke. I found I was all alone. My silver watch and my money too, and my whole bloody gear was gone. Was gone, was gone. My whole bloody gear was gone. It was when I awoke, it was no joke, for my whole bloody gear was gone. As I was walking down the street, I met Big Rapper Brown. I asked him if he would take me in, and he looked at me with a frown. He said, last time you was paid up with me, you talked up no score. But I'll take your advance and I'll give you the chance to go to sea once more. Once more, once more, to go to sea once more. I'll take your advance and I'll give you the chance to go to sea once more. Sometimes we're catching whales, me lads, but mostly we get none. With a 20-foot oar in every pour from 5 o'clock in the morn. And when daylight's gone and the night's coming on, we rest upon our oars. And oh boys, you wish that you was dead, or snug with the girls ashore. Ashore, ashore, or snug with the girls ashore. Oh boys, you wish that you was dead, or snug with the girls ashore. Come Come all you seafaring lads that listen to me song. When you go a big boating, boys, make sure you do not go wrong. You take my tip when you come off a trip, don't go with any whores, but get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more.